Okay, all right. I am live. Let me share my screen. So this is I was supposed to do other things besides Bitcoin today. Considering where we are, I probably will touch on Bitcoin because we've had pretty significant price action over the last few days that I think are setting us up for we had a nice move over 100K right into the golden pocket. You guys won't be able to see this, so like you guys in VIP won't be able to see this, but for anybody watching the replay, you'll be able to see this. So this is my Telegram announcements channel that I've had for a long time, and I just started posting in it again. But I actually gave, it was a short setup that we talked about last stream, but went right into the golden pocket here, and when I posted it, we were literally sitting inside the golden pocket, so it was a good short. Looking for a scalp short back to 100K, move your stop loss to entry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, kind of wrote about it. But it ended up being a really, really, really good, short from there. So, you guys want to check out the Telegram announcements, it'll be in the link of the description of this video. It's free. There's nothing, I just literally post in there, and we posted some charts, some thoughts in there as well. Talked about Sol a little bit, talked about Bitcoin price action, and anyway, give out some interesting levels to watch.
I actually saw the
yeah. So it's kind of I feel I need to dust off the old Telegram and post a bit more in there, and I felt like it was pretty good timing for that stuff. So I am, I'll briefly cover Bitcoin a bit later, just because there's a lot going on, and I could easily focus another stream just purely on that, what my thoughts are, but I will never ever get anything done, right? So I gotta try to stick to the topic of this stream, which was taking what we did last week and spend a significant amount of time talking about Bitcoin, and kind of what I thought this year was going to kind of shape up to be. And then now we're transitioning over to traditional markets and moving over to ETH and alts, stuff like that. Oh, thanks, Sonny. Close my door, okay? Sorry, 1 second. My daughter just brought me in lunch, which I don't know how I'm going to eat, but... One second. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, I guess we'll start out with ES. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, is my guess. But I did want to take a look at it because I thought, I looked at the chart, really interesting. We hit a pretty interesting level. So if you guys remember this from, it'd be a few streams ago at this point, but this measured move is essentially hit. So finding resistance around here, not really that surprising. And if you remember, this measured move was taken from this range, right? So it was literally this range. Range low, range high. Measure that, and it gives you kind of a target to watch. This is your 1-to-1 of this range. Got up, almost to the, almost a, literally perfect measured move. And then backed off, quite nicely. I think that, again, I wouldn't be too surprised to see some consolidation under here. This is a pretty significant, and it's been, I would say, it's been very orderly. But I mean, it's again, you have like another just move higher, just pushes higher forever. That's kind of like how stocks work, I guess. Uh, up only forever. You zoom out, it's certainly, you go on SPX, it's literally forever. Going forward though, so like for this year, interesting levels to watch. So the yearly pivot it's not that far below us. Off the high, you're looking at a 9% correction. You look on the daily here. Yeah, so you have this gap from September. Doesn't necessarily have to be filled. It's definitely a place that I would watch, and I think it's interesting that the pivot lines up just underneath this. I think if we continue to see this range for any length of time, like if you look at this trajectory, right? Like yes, you have some pullbacks, but then you have really strong everything, like everything here is V-shape. V, 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 right? Like you see, we don't spend much time correcting. And if you look at kind of what's going on here, it's just we're forming a bit of a, like, arguably since November, we've kind of been in a range now. We're starting to develop a range. Which I apologize for like my like cough and stuff. I'm still like, I was sick last stream, getting over it. This stream, it's just, it's like the aftermath of like, it takes you a while. So sorry about that. But I would be watching these lows. So again, it's kind of like where you would look at the bottom of this range, essentially. I think that if you see ES come below 58.55, then you have another really nice support here. So like I would even mark this off because it's so clean at 57.24. It's very clean. But I think that if we lose 58.55 and start to kind of like lose this structure a bit, right, that we're putting in, then I do think that it's a bit more likely to come down and actually tag the yearly pivot, which would also fill this gap. I think that if you have really good support, and by the which again, like this move down to the yearly pivot, it's not even on my mind, especially as long as we're like above 58.55. You know what I mean? Like this is totally fine. And even here locally, which I mean, you're talking about, this is daily chart from November, right? So like this is a decent amount of time, but we're even putting in higher lows across the board, as and I'm talking higher lows in terms of not necessarily like pure structure, because like you'd want to see higher highs and whatnot, but I'm just saying the lows are even getting higher, which by the way is like ripe. Like this is like ripe for a SFP, right? This is like beautiful. So you could see that, and that would probably be a really nice trade. So for those of you who trade ES, if you do see a quick move down, takes out this low, and then you kind of chop around back and you get back inside, right? That's your long stop losses below wherever your wick low is, and then you look to run this up again. Find your range targets and whatnot, but like that would be a really nice trade. And the overall trend is still to the upside, right? So that could be a nice entry to get in. But if you don't have an SFP here, 58.55, then yes, I do think we're probably coming back down to revisit, revisit some of these lower levels. And this gap sitting here just seems, again, if you're coming back down to 57.24, I just think this gap is really likely to get filled, and the pivot, you clean up the yearly pivot, and go from there. I would say it would look pretty ugly. It would look kind of ugly if it would look kind of ugly if we lost the pivot. I would say that again, because like this stream is about what could happen this year, right? It's not necessarily about tomorrow or next week. It's like overall this year, what are some areas? What are some interesting areas that we could maybe see? I would say on an extreme case. So like if and which again, this is like a domino effect, right? Like you need one to happen before the other, obviously. Um, I think that there's a pretty strong case. Um, Again, losing 58.55, there's a pretty strong case to see the pivot get hit, which you can kind of translate what effect that might happen or might have on other assets that we look at. But I think I think this is a really good level. Below that, it starts to get, let's say, below the pivot starts to get a little worrisome. Here, too, you have kind of like this formation. So like, do we come down here, chop around to put in the right shoulder? You guys see that? And you guys know that I'm not like a huge fan of I'm not like a huge head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders type of fan. But it is there. Like it is shaping up to look like that, right? So losing 58.55, then you would be looking for the right shoulder to essentially get put in. With again, maybe a wick down to fill the gap or something like that. I don't know. But like that's something that is kind of shaping up. And would keep an eye on that. Because like that's something that you're gonna see a lot of people talk about if that does happen. But yeah, no real like crazy alarms or anything until 58.55 is lost, and then it's like you have your levels ahead of you that you need to watch to the downside. So let's talk like yearly pivot lost, pain and suffering everywhere, and what are some levels to watch to the downside? Well, I'll tell you one that I think is this again, the odds of this happening I would put as very low, barring some kind of I hate to use the word black swan or something like that because I'm not necessarily thinking that's the case, but like in a reason to have really, really heightened volatility, right? There could be numerous reasons for that. I mean, we have a new president coming in, kind of new, kind of not. He takes office in like, what is it, 12 days? Something like that. There's just a lot of stuff going on that, I don't necessarily think I'm not looking for something like this to happen, but in the back of your mind, like if you're setting yourself up for the year, you have to be prepared to trade levels and like find places now while you're level headed. And if for some reason the market moves down to these levels, you're prepared and you're ready to go, right? You've already thought about this months and months and months ago. You're prepared to trade it. For me, it's this region down here. The odds of that happening, I think, are very low. But if ES makes its way back into this range, so first of all, your S1 is even at 5K, slightly above, which I think is a decent level. It's like 5K, a nice round number. But if you get acceptance back inside of this range, right? I think that a level all day, and I don't know if this level right now is irrelevant. It's pointless it's really not, well, it's not pointless because we're talking about, potential high time frame levels to hit. But like considering the posturing of this chart, even like there's not really like any reason to be looking here. But for me, it's down here at this region. I think this is a massive, massive, massive buy if we're given the chance to buy this in 2025. And I don't know if we are. But if we did, this would be it. So it's really around 4150, to like 4350, something like that within this region. Basically the beginning of this breakout. If we faded that, which this is asking a lot. I'm not thinking that this is going to happen, but if it did, I would be very excited about this region. So mark it on your chart. I don't know if it's bad luck to talk about that for those who are really bullish. But you know, again, like kind of like what's seems to be the case, and again, the trend is your friend. Um, you know, again, I'm kind of like setting up this chart, and I sound really bearish at first, but we're still, we haven't really broken anything. No reason to be bearish yet. But those are kind of the downside levels of interest. So, like, does anybody have any questions before I move on? It's pretty cut and dry, normal stuff that we look at week to week. But I'm trying to do like a bit more explaining because I probably am gonna post this one publicly too, because I kind of promised, or you know, I asked, and I know some people asked me if they could watch it afterwards. So I'm trying to do a bit more explaining. But yeah, I think, you know, getting to the downside, there's a lot of confluence here. This would be insane if we got this. And to give you like some context about why I don't think that's really, I mean, you're looking at like there'd be a reason to come here. And the thing that I like about this, looking at regions like this, is that if you see severe weakness and, you know, we break this trend and, you know, things look like we're going to get a prolonged, you know, corrective move. I mean, that's like a massive, massive move. If that was to play out, I mean, geez, could you imagine like coming back below, like back into this region? You know, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity, but there's probably, the world will probably, you know, that's serious. Like if, if we came back here. Um, so I will say that the thing that kind of has me, the thing that kind of has me, um, like why I'm even bringing up these levels is, you know, the market, like, again, we're getting a president who like is very generates a lot of interest, right? Like a lot of like likes, you know, for lack of a better way to say it, like he's polarizing, and you know, there's things tend to be more, you know, the market tends to move more aggressively, I would say. And I think that some of the things that are being talked about, I wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't be too surprised to see a bit more volatility than I guess we've had. Um, but again, I'm not necessarily looking for this. But I think the thing that's I'm a little concerned about is I feel, and I don't know what you guys think, and you guys can chime in if you want. Um, I feel like a lot of people are on the side of like this thing has to go, like Trump's president again, this thing's going to the moon. Like we have to. Like, do you guys hear that or feel that? That like people automatically think that because that happened, that things are programmed to go higher. Like we have to go higher now? Or is it just me? Because that's kind of like, I don't like hearing stuff like that. Um, you know, and maybe it's true, but I think it's when you have a lot of people on one side, like everybody, you know, I don't hate to use the term everybody, but a lot of people thinking one way, it leaves you, um, it's not always a good thing, right? Let's say balance is healthy. So I don't know what you guys think. You guys can chime in if you want, or is it just me? It'll take just a second here. Hold on. So, again, kind of like downside regions. I mean, this to me would be phenomenal. I put the odds of something like this happening like very low. But you know, you have to be prepared for it. I think filling the gap, tagging yearly pivot, um, I'd say that the odds of that happening are pretty high. And kind of judging how things are now, we do kind of come down and create a right shoulder. I just think it's like that would look really nice actually if it did that. But you get below that, um, and you can actually do a measured move now of what that might look like. Maybe something like this. That would put you funny enough, kind of like down where this anchored VWAP is from the low that we haven't touched yet. I like that a lot, actually. I like that quite a bit. And this anchored VWAP is going to move up over time, slowly. You know, it's going to keep moving up. But I would keep an eye on this anchored VWAP. Nice confluence there, and I do think that you'd probably get a pretty solid bounce off of that. But that would be the measure move of something that hasn't even formed yet. So something to keep in mind. To the upside, nothing above here except clean air, right? If the odds, what's probably more likely to happen is, you know, just forming another range, forming another base before we continue higher. Why? Because that's literally what we've done every other damn time. So until you break support, there's no reason to get crazy and think the top's in and it's massively bearish, right? You break this support, then you start building your case. It starts getting more, you know, you start to look for downside. But to the top, really, even this range that we're forming right here, it looks fine. You have higher lows, like I said, in terms of the lows of the range. And, you know, kind of like the thing is, again, the measure move here is fulfilled from your range. So if you remember, I think this was like range trading video 6 talking about measure moves. It wouldn't surprise me to, again, you know, maybe we have another move up that like kind of like really fills this thing and gets the full move. And then, you know, either we continue this range or pull back, something like that. I just think this is like low hanging fruit right here. Low hanging fruit. It would be nice to come clean this up now, like get this over with. Put in again, kind of like build a nice range, and then we can push up again. But yeah, top side, really just look at your yearly pivots. Your R1, your R2, those were good targets last year. Not much to say about that. Although, you know, again, I would just say, like, I think the trend is your friend. It is what it is. See if there's anything else interesting. Holy crap, Bitcoin. Don't make me look at you now, please. Should we look at it now, or do you guys want to look at it later?
Whenever it suits you.
Let's just get it over with. We know we're gonna do it. Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. Me clean this up a little bit. Oh boy. Oh boy. So look, for anybody who did take this short, congratulations. Like, very good. That's why you look at these. That's why you look at these levels, right? You're sitting in a really good spot right now. Now, if it was me, I would definitely have taken profit twice. I would definitely, like, TP1 for me would have been, you know, again, I'd be looking at this as a scout, 99K, 100K, good area to take some off, move your stop to entry, and coming down to essentially the bottom of this range, right? So we're really, really range bound. This absolutely is another take profit. You know, you could trail your stop up closer if you want. I probably would. You know, if we expect this range to continue, then there's a couple ways to play this actually. But if you expect this range to continue, you basically hit the bottom of it, right? Like we're very close to the bottom of it. Like you would be closing your position here, or you know, a fair amount of it. And chalk it up. That's you know, really, really good trade. What I'll say is again, like this is a nice range. There's not much reason to go below December 30th low though. There is no reason, really. And I think that if we take this low out, then you know, we do have this 87K. You know, we do have this 87K here. But if you remember from last stream, it was also where are you? Your Kijun rose up, which by the way is the low of the day. So on this spike down, daily Kijun catching it as you would hope it would. Getting a pretty nice reaction off of that so far. So you did get your mean reversion. So I want to do this on like a clean chart. I'm gonna do this on a clean chart so you can see it. I'm actually gonna delete everything. So this was a good example of having a C-clamp, right? Price being really far away from your Kijun, and Kijun essentially coming up to meet price. That's what I would say. Again, you're kind of closing, you're like closing your C-clamp. Again, usually price will mean revert to it. In this instance, I would say that the Kijun came up to basically support price. This is a really important level. And you see that from today's candle, like literally coming down and tapping your, like getting your mean reversion, right? And getting a nice, like that's a decent bounce off of that. However, I don't know if it's decent enough. We'll see. We'll see where we close today. And there's another, again, I'll probably get into that in a second on why I'm like a little concerned about this posturing of where we are. So yeah, like we found our, we got our mean reversion, Kijun's current support, but it's also coming in line nicely with the bottom of the range, right? This is roughly the bottom of the range that you want to see held. We had these series of lows, and it's all these lows. So it's really this low, this low, this low. We mark them. You guys remember? So these lows here, right? Those are the lows that got ran on December 30th. What you really like, and you got a great reaction, right? You got a really nice strong move up out of there, where into golden pocket. This is like a classic move, right? But the low of December 30th, really important. I think if we go below there, all bets are off. This is not good. Like that's not good. And I do think that if you get another SFP in there, I think the odds of that are lower. And every time it's lower, right? Like when you test support, it's just like basics. Like this is like support and resistance 101. This is like the first video. The more times that you tap it, the more times you test support, the weaker it gets, theoretically, right? Like it's the less people that are probably going to be there to defend it the sixth time around that you tap it. This is a region that you really want to see held. Today we got a nice mean reversion, official tap with a daily Kijun. We haven't seen that in a while. Geez, like that's probably the low you want to see held. What's my gut tell me? My gut tells me that it's, I'm not really sure if that's gonna hold or not. I'd really like to see it close today. I think it's above 95. Yeah. We got a little bit of work to do to try to salvage this, in my opinion. Thing that has me like, I don't like seeing this, but it's into support. We're at the bottom of the range. To me, the level to watch is really December 30th. That's the level to watch. I think if we take that out, the case for 87K, if you remember, like Kijun was supporting it last stream, and I said we had like 3 days to do this. So that time's passed, right? And like now you got your actual mean reversion today. So if we lose December 30th low, then you're also going to be losing the Kijun, right? So this would turn into something not as good. I would say like best case scenario, you want this range to hold. But if you start trading below this low, especially if you close candles inside a cloud, that's like even worse. Why? Because in a few days, so like looking ahead towards the end of the week, you have what is likely to be a bearish ticket cross. If this happens while price is still within range, not the end of the world. Okay. Turn these fractals off for a second. Not the end of the world. But, you know, again, like we just stick to the fact that this is very likely to remain range bound, and that's okay. We've seen this before lots of times where like we build a range, gives you a nice base to, you know, a nice established base to move out of either direction though. And I think, again, the longer this range goes on, the longer the range goes on, the bigger the move is going to be, right? In this instance, I think you have a few check marks to the downside that you can kind of pay attention to, that would kind of be problematic. Number one is the loss of the December 30th low. That for me is the level to watch. Like I think if we take that out, it's not the best. Not good at all. The secondary thing is closing candles inside a cloud. Again, problematic. Why? Because the current posturing of this is problematic. Like you have a bearish CK cross looming within a few days. You start to close candles in here. What do you have? Edge to edge trade, right? Then you'd be looking for 80K. Whose mic is that? MBD, can you mute yourself, please, sir? So anyway, anybody have any questions about that? I'll wait just a second. That's kind of a lot. I would say that as we sit now, totally fine. This is what you want to see, right? I don't really like this. But when you are range bound, you're going to get that cross anyway, right? And what is the cross signal? That the trend is over. That's really the only thing that cross is going to signal, that the trend is over. So the trend that's existed since we broke out of this range, right? Bullish TK cross. You know, you get all your markers, price is above cloud, cloud flips bullish, Chica span above price, blah, 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 like, you know, full on bullish signal. You know, we've had a really nice move from these levels from like 60K, and it's been a nice move, a nice range, but now you're having your trending indicator kind of like tell you that the trend is likely, barring a recovery here, and I mean a recovery like within the next day or two, like a real decent recovery. This is going to, like, you know, if you're long from down here, if you haven't taken any off the table yet, and this is not advice of any sort, this is just my thoughts. When you get your bearish TK cross, if you took the trade based upon this, and you now there's a number of other things that you could be looking at, like, you know, looking at the fractals, for example, that I used earlier, waiting for those to be, you know, you'd be basically moving your stop up. There's a number of ways that like you could look to trade this, but that's that in its simplest form. You get in when the trend tells you to get in, you get out when the trend tells you to get out. Because why? Because this signals that the trend's over. And we've seen this before a number of times, right? And then your next setup, this, which by the way, like this leads into another setup, which I love. It's the bullish TK recross above cloud, and we all know like how powerful those are. I've talked about them numerous times. But you know, getting a bearish TK cross here, I do think it's a good, like that would be probably a good time to de-risk if you haven't. And if you're trading this way, if you're trading using Ichimoku, that's one of the ways that you would do it. And wait for your next setup. And be patient and let price do what it's going to do, right? So either you get you know, as we sit, the next setups that just seem really likely at this point, we're going to get that cross. It's very likely. Unless we get a serious bounce in the next day or two, we're going to get this cross. And so, you know, either waiting for an edge to edge down to 80 and taking a short, could short the breakdown of this, which this is a really risky trade, but I think that if we take out this low, I should just mark it off so you guys can see it. I think if we take out this low, so it's 91,271, it gets uglier. But I would say like this region here is, you know, I mean, you could even draw it a little bit down because I'm talking about like the edge of the cloud. This is kind of like no man's zone, right? Like this isn't a great place to trade. If you're looking for like directional trading, I would argue. You know, really like the best trade that I think that's coming from this area is actually a long, right? You're at the low of the range. I would say the best risk reward here is probably it's a long, looking for the range to continue with the stop below the slow, right? Like that's, so like if you had one trade set up here, that would probably be it. You lose this, and that's kind of why like I don't like the momentum, like trying to like get real momentum below this. I think you probably do see that. But the cloud kind of being where it is, it's not like the best. You get a daily candle close below here though. Yes, I do think that you'll probably see some follow through from that. But yeah. Anyway, range bound until further notice is what I would say. First and foremost, you lose this level, different story. And I think we got a bit of, you might see some downside. And I mean, look at like some of these higher time frame. Look at like some of these higher time frames, like these kind of an ugly candle so far. This is okay. So this funny. This was a daily. Now this is actually a weekly. I mean, you clearly see where the support is. And so again, this green candle, the current wick low of that, like that's the low that I would be watching. Otherwise, yeah, it just looks likely. Let me get a bit more downside if that's taken out. Any questions at all? I like the range. I love the range. I like, you know, again, if you're, that's, which is why, like, if you're short here, then, you know, you would be looking to you'd be looking to probably close it at the bottom of the range. Just the normal thing to do. Curious what the measured move of this would be. So the 1-to-1 of this would put you around 85.6. Which I'm just curious, what does that mean in terms of cloud? That puts you well inside of cloud. Then the 1618 is 75K. Okay. All right. I spent way too much time on Bitcoin already. Does anybody have any questions? No questions? 0 questions today? Holy shit, this is like the quietest you guys have been.
One is flabbergasted.
I'm trying to think if I wanted to say anything else. Let me turn Ichimoku off. So yeah, like concerning thing is the looming bearish TK cross, which space again, it just signals that the trend is over. Confirming this range. You know, that's basically what it means to me. which it gave you, you know, either way, like that was a hell of a trade, like from 60K up to here, kept you in, right? But yeah, it's just waiting. The thing is, if we're going to be range bound, then for me, like kind of how I would look at it is a bullish TK recross above cloud when that does come eventually, or well, if it does, you know, from this posture, that's a whole different story. That like we, you know, we'll see what happens, you know, later on. But I'm saying hypothetically, if this range continued, we didn't lose the low, then yeah, like you could start to see some signals that fire that might not necessarily be the best. I think like context would be really important for me, like how strong of a signal that would be. So to put that back on, you know, I'm talking about getting the blue line to go below the yellow line, so getting a bearish TK cross, and then price continuing to go sideways for a while, and then seeing it recross at some point. That's the signal that we're waiting for, or would be waiting for after this actually crosses. That's like the next really, to me, like that's a very bullish signal. But I'd want to see where we are within the range and what's happening on like lower time frames. Does that support, like, are we seeing something that could get, you know, a really nice bounce? If that's the case, that's probably enough to take us out of the range. That's really jumping ahead, but that's kind of what I'd be looking at, because we don't even have the bearish TK cross yet. So yeah. But anyway, bottom of the range, not the end of the world yet. I don't like this close today. I don't like, you know, again, we're at support. This is typically like, this is where are you waiting to buy this? It's here, right? Thing I don't like about it is that you're going to get a cross. It's kind of almost inevitable unless we get a serious move up out of here. But this is like, that was the buy today. Like that, if you've been waiting for that, like we keep saying over and over again, where are you going to buy? Like you got it today. Like that is it. With like pretty good, like if you think about it, using December 30th as like your stop loss, which I think is not a bad thing to do. The risk reward on this was phenomenal. You have your key June, you had a clearly defined level that you didn't want to see, like you have your invalidation, which to me is always the most important thing, and you also have I mean, it's basically a daily level here. I mean, it's perfect. Like you had great confluence there and the bottom of the range, like beautiful. It's actually a really nice area. The thing again, like you're kind of you have other things that are saying to be careful, right? But a lot of confluence, a lot of reasons to have a bounce here off of that region. So that is positive. But I don't love this. I don't love this. You know, if we were, I don't talk about these too much, but I don't love the fact that stochastic is the way that it is. Getting this signal, really not a good thing. You know, if it had reset basically, and I think this would be a better place to fade this signal. But for me, I would say like what's more important that I like is the confluence that you had here to take that long. Like I like that. That over, like that's the most important thing for me. But there's kind of a lot of reasons why this is like why like things need to bounce here or else. So yeah, trade with caution, I would say. And anybody who's long here, I think that there's great reasons to be, but make sure that you understand, like for yourselves, where do you think you're wrong on that? Like, where do you think? I feel like December 30th low is a pretty good area to like not want to be below. But you know, if yours is different, which is totally fine, and you might be, you know, I might be wrong, you might be right. Just this is a good area to make sure that you have your invalidations in place, though, like in case we have some downside. Don't want to get stuck. Does this change the so like since this is a higher time frame minded video, does this change my thought process about You know, like for this year, not really. I wouldn't say that. Like I still like higher overall. I don't think the high is in. It's just, you know, if we do pull back first, I think that sets us up better. That's what I'll say. If we pull back, and I think I touched on this, I think I talked about this last stream, but if we go lower first, I think that's actually healthier or better for. I would say that if we go lower first, that I think we can have higher upside targets. That makes sense? If we went higher first, that's when I was talking about like the 117, 121 area, you know, like I like as far as like really significant levels that I would be cautious of. I think that getting a range here is, you know, especially if we do get a pullback, find some really nice support and then get back into this range, something like that. Like then I think like the upside targets from here could, you know, maybe more forgiving. It's like you could get a bigger move than you would just kind of pushing up from here, if that makes sense. Structurally, that would look pretty good, right? Let's say we came down to mid 70s, low 80s, something like that, put in a nice base, and then, you know, made another attempt to the upside. Then you have you have nice structure, you have good pullback. It's like it makes more sense to do that. But not that you necessarily have to do that. It's just for me, that's kind of what my thoughts are about that. So yeah, Bitcoin today, man, I don't love the close. First and foremost, range, trade the range until it's broken. There's no reason to think anything else. But we are in the bottom of it, and we are at a point where this, like, you really need to pay attention, and kind of have your levels in mind. That, like, if they're violated, have your plan for, you know, if you're going to trade it, like how you're going to trade that. What is this? Anchored view out from below, coming at like 78. Yeah. Now's the time where I'm going to take just a minute. And if you guys post, and I already see there's a couple, I will go over ETH if you guys want me to. If you guys don't want me to, I won't go over it. It's kind of like what you guys want to do. I will go, you know, we'll take a look at ETH BTC and stuff. Like, we'll take a quick look at these things. But if you guys would rather me look at other stuff that's more meaningful to like what you guys are actually looking at, I'd rather do that. So let me know. I'll give it just a minute. I need like just a bit. Be right back. Okay. What is it? Let me read these. MPC? What is that? Take a look at that, I guess, and see what's going on there. Okay. We'll do it. We'll try to do it kind of quickly. ETH BTC. So, man, this has been a tough one. This has been a really tough one. So I drew this zone. I think back in October. I think it was like an October stream. And, this was kind of my region. You get above this, things start to look really, really good. And we poked above it very briefly. If you guys remember, like this big ETH surge that happened back in early November. But we faded that immediately, right? Came back to kind of around this trend line, even got like a little deviation below this trend line. Holy crap, that's from like way back here. Look at that. It's like way back here. Old trend line. And you got your deviation even below this, gets back above, nice move, comes back down, support. I would watch this. But even this zone, this SR zone, got back above wicks, no real close. I mean, that's kind of a close, like right at it, but then fades it again. The thing that I like about this is that kind of the rate of descent has stopped. So, as far as like putting in a range, putting in a base here, you can make an argument that this is a nice place for that to be the case. And I would say, again, this is ETH BTC, so this is measuring ETH strength versus Bitcoin. And, at least I would say like this just nasty downside, right? Like this is just pure downside. It's trying to find its footing. And I think that this is a logical region for us to see this kind of base out and maybe try to get that reversal, right? I think that this region down here, though, if we see, what is this, 0.03, something like that, that's a really, really good, I like that level quite a bit, this region. But so your yearly pivot is, I would say that this is your, and I probably shouldn't say it like that, but the thing that comes to mind is like your all clear level. If you want a level that's probably, if we break above this level, I think things are very bullish for ETH and they're likely to get it. Like, I think it's like a momentum level for me. It's your pivot. And I think that if we can cleanly get above it, then be looking for some serious upside on ETH. But until that happens, right? I would still say first warning sign is getting, man, it's like you really need to like see it get and hold, right? And like actually start trading above this region. Nothing like no like quick move like that or wicks. Like you need to see clear acceptance above this. And then kind of like judge your reaction at the pivot. You get above the pivot and start holding, I think that's very bullish. Like then you see, you probably have like a really clean, maybe you get some kind of like rounded bottom. I don't know. You're gonna see all this crap everywhere else about like bullish formation. Either way, it will look really good. Keep it simple. It will look very good. So this year, in terms of what I'm looking for on ETH, taking out so this is December 20th low. Then I would be looking for a move. I don't know what the hell would be happening, but that wouldn't look very good. Give us some lower levels still, like, which would be very attractive. And the thing that I'll say again, trying to keep in mind that this is a higher time frame, talking about 2025, not just what I see right here that could like happen within the next week or two. It's finding regions to like higher time frame regions, which I think this is one of them. This is literally your macro point of control, by the way. It's down here. Update this, see if it changed at all. Nope. So this is your macro point of control for ETH BTC since the inception. This is it. Nice order block here. This screams like, buy me please if I come here. That's not too far below this current low. So you could see, I could kind of foresee like some kind of SFP into this, on like a weekly candle, something like that. You kind of get a stab down into it, find some support, and then try to like reclaim this trend line, just like what it did here, that would be really, really, really good, I think. But yeah, that's ETH BTC and kind of the pain. This chart, I mean, this is nasty. Like, this is just pain and suffering. And like for anybody who's been watching the ETH chart for as long as we have, it's almost like why would anybody buy this crap, right? When like you could buy stuff that actually is showing strength, stuff like Solana that made a new high actually, and has a lot of cool stuff happening on chain. You know, there's like other places to be that are more exciting and have given a lot more opportunity than ETH has so far. But maybe this year's different. Maybe ETH will yes.
Regard, I want to hear your opinion. So the last cycle, 2017-18, ETC tanked against Bitcoin. It really nuked in a couple of weeks. And if you view this from that point, it actually showed significant strength against Bitcoin throughout the fall into the bear market. What are your thoughts around that? That's a different viewpoint.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I guess so kind of like what you'd be saying is that where we are now is a much better place than where we were last cycle. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, last cycle ETC nuked, and this cycle it was like fighting for his life against Bitcoin.
Yeah,
that's why it slowly grinded.
I would agree. Oh, you're talking about like this. You're talking about like this, like yeah. So like the rate of descent versus like just pure pain. That's interesting to like think about it like that. Like I would say my initial thought is that ETH is just more relatively accepted now, right? It's not an experiment. It's not like a I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot more mature. I think it's clearly been given the crown as like second to Bitcoin. Like there's, you know, it has a lot more traction and acceptance than it did last cycle. That's what my thought is, and like why we've probably seen us not seen so much volatility is I think that it's like generally accepted now that ETH has a serious place here, and that it's, I mean, that's just kind of what my initial thought would be. The thing that I like about it, on like a little bit of a, maybe I'll have a little bit better luck here. Yeah. So again, like the thing that, so that's what I would say about kind of like what we've seen, you know, last cycle versus, well, I guess it would be 2 cycles ago now versus like last high made into a range, and then like, you know, like you see how it's not so volatile. It's a lot more controlled, I guess you could say. The thing that, you know, again, looking at this trend line and overall, I mean, I would say the thing that's not great is, you know, we had like a really significant high get put in, lower high, and then now there's just, I mean, you could argue that like this is just one huge, massive consolidation. But what I like, this trend line, it's been really good so far. Here and like, okay, so like here's a different way to look at it. So remember you had like the daily candle below it, and then kind of like reclaimed it. If you look at even just a 2-day, which 2-day is not that high of a time frame, you can see that like there were just wicks, right? There was just really quick moves down below. This trend line is very well respected still, I would argue. I mean, like if you got a 2-day close below this, especially, I would say if you get a 2-day close below the December 20th low right here, then I would be looking for this to kind of form. But overall, I wouldn't necessarily be expecting like a full-on meltdown, you know? I don't think that's very likely to happen, barring some kind of catastrophe with ETH. You know, looking literally at the point of control, look how thick this volume node is, by the way. Holy crap, that is insane. Okay, I had to draw a little box. load up to here. I had to draw a box of macro. You can call this like your macro box, right? Clearly a massive volume node here. The macro point of control is sitting here. There's a lot, like, if you lose this, the bottom of this, then yes, I do think that, I mean, you have the EQ here, which has a nice kind of a node here. You lose, you can go level to level, then it would be, I don't know what the hell would be happening. Either Bitcoin is absolutely ripping and melting faces. I mean, that's kind of like what it would take, right? Like Bitcoin would be mooning like we haven't seen in a little while and leaving everything behind. Bitcoin dominance would be like up significantly, like it would some kind of event where I don't know, maybe there's like serious talks and like actual movement into Bitcoin becoming stores of values for countries around the world. I don't know, you can go on and on and like maybe that's a case where you would see extreme weakness here, right? Probably a case. I would say that's probably what it would take. But for like a nice technical level on this chart that I think is high time frame, has pretty good reasons to want to kind of pick up and base off of here, is probably this region, right? Just looking overall, this is a really nice region, really nice zone. And kind of like the top of this green part is really about volume. It's giving you, like, it's just showing you volume support. The point of control is actually a bit lower. So like you could, I mean, I'm not like this. Where would I really like think is a good chance to try to snipe a bottom? If we get one, it's here, literally here on this bottom part. But anywhere below here, which is kind of why like losing this trend line, not necessarily the best thing, but from a volume point, this is where the node is. And there's been pretty good, there's been roughly, like this is, you can kind of tell why the node looks the way that it does. But this is the area, this is the zone where I would really like be excited if I saw this. But if you look at it again from the volume, it's really higher up. It's a bigger box. Like this is a nice region. So, it and so far still holding this trend line, not the end of the world. It's okay. But make no mistake, like ETH is still obviously weak. ETH BTC, the chart does not look, this is not like it's not like making new highs or anything like that. Certainly it's quite the opposite. But we're trying to paint a nice bullish spin on ETH, and I think that's the case. Like I think it's kind of like what you'd want to see. If it doesn't hold this, then be looking for a move down to 0.03, and that's probably like a really, really nice level to watch. To the top side, yeah, for me, this zone still really important, and I think you'll see it, right? Like if you start to push above here, you're gonna see it, and we're gonna see a lot of things moving. You get above this yearly pivot here, and I think in terms of what I would say, melt your face, alt season, like holy crap, like that's probably this level. Get above that, a lot of things are probably gonna look really good. So we're kind of in the doldrums here. It's a good phrase, I would say. Like we're kind of continuing to kind of like, I mean, we've technically been in this range since October. But not a lot's happened, right? In terms of ETH. Like we had a nice spike the other day. If you remember, like on this green candle, we had like a pretty nice move up. But it's like, it's not a lot happening here. It's, you gotta wait for one of the two to happen. I think excitement happens if we come into the green for different reasons. It's probably gonna be a bit painful for anybody holding it. It can be a bit painful watching that happen. But to the top side, you start to break above here again, especially by this pivot. It's gonna like this. Gonna look really good. The R1 is the value area high, coming in right around the macro value area high. So I like where these are lining up quite a bit. Any questions about ETH BTC? Again, a chart we'll watch, we'll monitor. We don't always go over it, but it's interesting. Wait just a second. Gotta take a bite of my sandwich here, otherwise my wife's gonna kill me. It's getting cold. All right. ETH. We can take a quick look at ETH. I am probably going to do one of these. Clean it up. Wow. So I actually haven't seen this, by the way. I was trying to wait until the stream to look. We haven't hit the yearly pivot yet, but it's close. Really interesting. I have not seen these levels. Makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. These are the ones that I'm really interested about. By the way, feel free to interrupt me. I'm just going to be playing around with a few things here. They're insane yearly candles. Oh, God. Oh, wow. It's not good. Oh. No, so this is we talk about this a lot, right? And this is kind of like your daily candle, like your daily SR level trades that we talk about all the time. You had it here, right? So this monthly's tapped. But you had a monthly candle opened here, right? And it came up rejected off of your monthly. So I gave you the underside test and nice move down. So that would have been a really, really good short. Looking for that. Obviously that's done and gone now. And I'm gonna delete this level, but man, that is nasty. Below yearly open, you have a very clear, this is wild. Very clear level here. What is this? Monthly? Double monthly. This is a huge level. 25. And you know, this is kind of like this is a pretty big zone. This is a pretty big zone. But I would definitely draw a box here. Like this is clear support, right? You have a nice range for me. I mean, this is like a picture perfect range so far. If you see any downside on ETH, I do think that this is a nice place to buy. Like this is a nice place to look for a trade. Which it would just revert the entire candle, I guess. Which if ETH is acting like a pile of garbage, then you know you wouldn't be that surprised to see ETH down there again. If we see like kind of like what I would say is if you see ETH, or I'm sorry, you see Bitcoin like taking out December 30th lows, real weakness. Then it closes inside of cloud, looking to to work its way down to like mid 70s to high, or mid 70s to 80K, something like that. ETH is unlikely to be at 3,200, right? It's very unlikely to hold that. We're probably going to see it down somewhere in this region. So, I do like this zone quite a bit in terms of defense. Like, it spent 4 months basically, you have your move down, builds a base for a few months. Even the low of the August candle wasn't taken out, and you're building a nice base here, right? And then, really nice move. Like, kind of like, this is kind of similar, but not. But you can kind of see when you get wicks, and then you get your explosive move up out of here. We got a nice move up. But what I would say is look at Bitcoin, see where it is in terms of support. As long as that continues to kind of lead the show, right? Look at where that is, like where if we do see those lower levels on Bitcoin, where is that at in relation to its support? And then look at the chart. And like, are we here? Are we here? Right? That's kind of like how I would look at it. To gauge. And not the end of the world. Just not like this was a really nice short, actually. Like a really nice short. I missed it. But that's a nice setup. Orly 25, 2600. I do think that this is like a pretty good support area though. If we end up seeing that. Kind of drill down a little bit more. See if I don't want to. You notice like I'm not marking all of these lower levels because it's not relevant right now. And I don't want to have a ton of going on this chart. I will mark this. Actually, I shouldn't. I really shouldn't yet. But this will very likely be a weekly level. Very likely be a weekly level. So again, maybe we get something similar. Maybe you get another opportunity there, right? So if this marks off as weekly, see where this weekly closes, and then maybe you get a nice attempt. Could be something to watch. Similar to that monthly setup. So we do have a weekly here. 3K. Few pulls I'm going to look at. It's roughly going to be the same. Okay. Interesting. So you got your mean version. Low, high, 50%. And that's where support is right now. Weekly below this. So kind of like one thing that comes to mind is you run this low into your weekly. And the weekly does hold as support. Give you kind of like a SFP setup, right? So lower time frame. Zoom in a little bit. Yeah. Wow, I didn't spend much time here at all either. This is a daily candle, but really, really strong reaction. Build a base. Yeah, this is a nice SFP. I would mark this down. And you have like what you would kind of expect on a move like this is if you have weekly support just below it, right? If you're looking to kind of put the two together as like a potential SFP, I would have the alert set there. But you're not looking for a massive move down, right? You're looking for something, maybe you just take this wick out just slightly. And it can go through the weekly. It's not, you know, you see where you actually have like a smaller region here. I want to have like a million boxes on my screen. But what I would say is like, if I'm looking for an SFP trade here, what I'm saying is like you have to try to find like reasonably where do you not want to see price go below for this to be relevant, right? Like for this to be active. Like you could see a really big move down and still get a nice reclaim, and it would be a swing failure pattern. It's just you have to decide, is wherever that wick low is that the risk that you're willing to, like, is that worth taking the trade or not? What I think is more likely to happen is if this is going to be a swing failure pattern, that it comes into this box. And it might not even come into this box. You might just literally get it right into the weekly, right? You might get it right to the weekly, like a really shallow, you could get like a really shallow move down and then a reclaim. And that's your swing failure pattern. And you have a really nice trade setup. But you know, where would you see, like, kind of like where could you see if this does roll over and you're looking for the swing failure pattern, where, like, this is kind of the region that I would be looking for this to happen. Like you want to kind of like, there's nice support here. You'd really want to see that held up. Like it should be kind of shallow. It shouldn't be anything drastic. Otherwise, I think it's unlikely to be a swing failure pattern. Then you got something else to deal with. But I do think this actually is kind of a nice support area. It's not a bad one. You have a weekly level, basically, right? That's basically the same thing. It's pretty close. You know, in fact, I mean, honestly, like you see like where you have like a double weekly here, actually. It's very close. You could even draw this up a little bit, like to the underside of that. That would be fine. It's basically this weekly level. And, you know, little short, kind of like really tight zone just below that. Which is 3K. So like you lose 3K, you do have the golden pocket. Which this is like the part that kind of pisses me off sometimes. Is like you have like really good, like you have like really good areas, but they're kind of close to each other. You know? I'll say this. What I would want to see here in this top part is an SFP. And I think that's the best trade. Like that's the best way to look at this, for the best way to look at this for myself. Like what I would be thinking. If you get that into this region, quick move up, probably a really nice scalp long opportunity that could lead into a nice, you could probably get a pretty decent move off of that. If it's not a swing failure pattern, I would much prefer the goal. I would much prefer this, and I'm not sure that you get it. You have a really nice consolidation here. Okay, you have a really nice range that got put in, nice consolidation. If you look at kind of like the top of that, and if you, there was a box that I had here forever. I mean, you have like, look at this, okay? So like this is like what I would say is your kind of like your range low, range high, whatever you want to put it. Like this is just like, oh, I guess the easiest way to say it is like a key level. This is an important level. It's an SR flip, okay? So you had really important support here, broke down, back test, resistance, and it almost double bottomed, right? It gave you a higher low before formed this nice range and moved up to the upside. Coming back down to that level would be a really nice back test. It'd be a great back test. I think this might go a little deeper though, probably a lot deeper. The 1-to-1 of that is actually at 27. So it would put you slightly below. By the way, So far, your high on Ethereum, this local high that we have here, is your golden pocket. The one-to-one of this would put you down actually slightly lower. I just feel like I feel like that's more likely to kind of get front ran. I don't know if you get the full one-to-one. Unless it's like a really unless it's like a really big move into it. Wow. So the one-to-one's 27, the 1618 is the low, which I think would be wild. And then you'd be looking at this as like one gigantic freaking range. Not necessarily looking at it like that at this time. Wow. How nice would it be though to have like a golden pocket and then to a golden pocket, right? That's why we like them. I just think that this one has phenomenal confluence. It's a very good confluence. So and by the way, again, sorry if this is going a little slow for you, but I didn't look at this chart prior to this, I promise. So I have to formulate my thoughts like, I don't have I don't have the thoughts. I have to think about it. And, you're seeing like real-time analysis. Okay. So for this, so again, zooming back out, like, what am I looking at for this year? The thing that's the closest to us now, and is seeming to be, especially if we don't, I really want to see a better close on Bitcoin today. But a better close is probably like 95.5, something like that. 96 is my guess. Like I'd have to go and look, but this is not the best close. Like this is not the best right now. Still in range, but it's not, doesn't look the best. For ETH, I think you have you have two very clear trade setups that I think, for whatever reason, I just feel like seems like we might get them. The first one, the swing failure pattern trade that I talked about already. And what you're looking for here is a quick move into basically, it's basically this green box. For illustrative purposes, I'm just going to move it right there to include the weekly. You're looking for a quick stab into here, quick reclaim, and again, let's just say that it comes in here, quick move, and you get acceptance back above. Your stop is below the low or wherever the wick low is, and you're looking to take this right back up, right? And I think you guys know how much I love those types of trades. I think that, again, for me, the case is a shallow wick, like into this region, and you probably see a nice strong bounce if it's going to work out. So that's more of like what I would say. It has a potential to turn into a really nice swing trade, but I would definitely be protective of that if I take this. Meaning like you get a nice bounce, I would be taking profit relative, I'd have to find, I'd want to see where the wick low is and find a spot to probably shave some off and move my stop up, right? I'd probably look to protect that one pretty quick. What I think is a pretty nice potential trade is the golden pocket trade. And it's the thing I love about it is it has really nice confluence. It's this other key level, right? Support, resistance, broke out. On this breakout, yes, on lower time frames, maybe we did give it some support tests, but on this time frame, no, like it just moved up right through it. So to come back and kind of like back test this as support, that would be a really classic type of move. But I could kind of see that getting front ran here, like come down to the 618, something like that, and then give a nice bounce. But I like that quite a bit because for me, the invalidation, right? If you start to get below this key level and get excess below it, then you're looking at this range. Then you're back here. And that, like, if you're long from above this range and you get acceptance back inside of this range, that's not a good thing. That's probably not a reason to want to continue to be long. So those are kind of like the two setups that I think are reasonably, I could see those happening. Down here, this big green box is what I would say is like a macro, like a high time frame buy zone, essentially, like a region to look for. And I could get a lot more precise, I'm sure, like analyzing this. You could put your volume here. You do that very quickly. Like you can get a lot more granular in this region to find, like, is there any levels within here that might be better areas to deploy capital if you're looking to be long in this region, which I think is a fair area. You kind of have, like, you have a double top here, essentially, right? Like you have a very clear high in so far. And then, like, range high, range low would be down here if you're looking for this range to continue. Which, Tig, I know you're in here, but like, holy crap, my ETH cells at 40.85 are looking real good right about now. Kind of like I would say this is 100% low time frame. Like, you're looking at this on a 5-minute. This is low time frame scalp that could turn into a nice swing. Second one, potentially a nice swing. Potentially a nice swing. I love, we've talked about satellite. This is like a nice swing. But here, this is bottom fishing, bottom of the range. If this holds true, I am kind of curious if this does do some kind of ridiculous range. Wow. Oh, the equilibrium is the low. Right. I already pulled it. You already pulled it. So, like, it's literally the 50%, which was a nice reaction. So again, like, I like the fact that if we do come down here, which is why I would absolutely be on the lookout for be on the lookout for a swing value pattern. You're just coming back to the EQ, right, of everything. You're coming back to the midpoint and testing it again. So I do like that. Any questions before we move on? Look at some random stuff. And this is one that, like, I would say just because of time constraints, we're like an hour and a half in. I could do like the upside analysis, and maybe I'll save that for another time because I think we have time between now and our next stream. I think we have some time to worry about. I'm more like, I think this is actually, like, these are definitely way more immediate, like, potential setups to the upside, breaking new highs and all that. If for some reason that was to start happening within the next week, then we could just jump on a stream and we could literally do that part together anyway, and it'd probably be kind of exciting because I'd wonder what the hell happened. But I don't think that's really a concern right now. Wow. Okay. What's next? Oh, I can't read that. Oh my god. Alicia just put a banger in chat. Oh god, that's funny. That's a good one. ETH. Yeah. And I don't know. Will this show up? NPC. What is that? NPC. It's on MEXC. What is this? Oh boy. Oh. Oh, nasty.
Sir, you get more history on the spot chart.
Okay, I'm just using. You said MEXC. Oh, this is perps.
The spot, yeah.
Do they have spot there too? I've never traded on MEXC.
NPC USD.
Okay. Spot. Oh, that's something big get.
Maxi, yeah. Thank you.
Is this okay? Or wait.
I think Maxi.
This one. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, that puts things. That's a little. That's not as horrific as the other one. Although it's kind of interesting once you do get perps, what happens? Like it's not. I mean, you look at it from that perspective. Wow, it's interesting. Like, what is this? Do you know anything about it, or are you just trading it?
Yeah, it's a meme.
Ooh.
It also is available on all other chains.
Yeah. So like that, like okay, you just came into your point of control, right? So like that, you're getting a nice bounce off of that. Look at your anchored view up from the high. Look at that. Wow.
This is one of my biggest holdings.
Which is why I like to do, like why I love to use that. It's just look at that. Do you see this? Like this, I can't tell you how many times you'll see this happen on altcoins. It's just it's like not surprising. This is a really good tool to use. Like I keep saying it, but man. Okay. Clear low. This is a nice, really nice support right here at your value area low. Um, This is nasty though. I would say that yeah, I mean, look, like I would say that pray that this bot, like the low that you have right now, um, you you really want to see that old. I don't know if it does. This is really weak, but you're back again. Like this is there's you can see why you got a nice response off of here so far. I don't see anything else that's like standing out to me that um I don't see anything else that's like giving too much support here. This is like would rather do it from here. It's probably like at best it's like a 886 or something like that. It's even deeper than that. I mean, like this is kind of like you don't really want to do that. That would be like even lower. Like to use that pull that much. Yeah, this is yeah, this is tough. I'd say like from here I don't see like I you have a nice reason for a bounce here. It did bounce very nicely. If you lose this, I could say I feel very confident that this is going to come all the way back down to what's your like the macro value area low of this chart, but also like this is like phenomenal. This is a good level down here. This is a very good level, like on its own, like just really good support here. So maybe you get something similar, which I know I feel like I use this a lot, but if you look at this setup, this is a nice like SFP. This is, you know, stop loss and look to run this up. Like this actually, like that's like a really good trade. Um, that's like a really good, that's a really good opportunity actually. If this is given. But yeah, I would be really careful about this. Like if you lose this low, I think that the odds of dropping down to that level to test it again are really high, and then you'll see like, you know, do people step in again? I mean, this is like 30% too. I know it looks small, but it's like that's a significant move down. But for the time being, nice bounce. You know, it's a decent bounce off of your point of control. You lose the point of control though. You look for the next level, and that's there. Um, Now to the upside, because this is probably one I don't know how often like we'll look at this, but for me, like this anchored VWAP from the high has been rock solid resistance, like flawless resistance almost, like insane. The if this can flip that when it does, which this is still very far away, but over time, like this will continue to come down, probably start flattening out a bit if this can start to build a base somewhere. And when you get the reclaim of that anchored VWAP, I would look for some like really decent upside potential. But for now, like this is a very strong downtrend off your high, very very strong, and this is a decent reversal point potentially. But I don't. It's like not enough for me to like get really excited, like to get, you know, want to be like overly excited about this. I think if you can get above this high, different story. So like you get above 2.6 cents and start like that would inspire a lot more confidence, I guess. Then I would be looking for, you know, I would probably be looking for another test of the top side of the value. Like you'd be looking for your high, which is again, guess what? Anchored VWAP, which I would probably short that. um, but that's, you know, yeah. Um, is that clear? Does anybody have questions on that?
Yes, I see it
You're
very
We're kind of like in a zone where I don't expect to like the only thing that I'm really concerned about at this point is losing the low. Like because that seems if you look at the trend, you look at the level and you can kind of see, right? Like if you lose this level, that's not good. Like that's not good at all. Um but I do think like around 1.2 cents, if it does come back down there at some point, that's like I would absolutely have an alert there if you trade this. This is a phenomenal level to look at a trade. And then, you know, obviously that would be a long setup if given, and then the target simply, you know, I'd have to see what happened to get into that level, but I could tell you the point of control would probably be at least the take profit one at least. And then I would be looking to see where this line is. And at that point, like at some point, this is going to start drifting down into your yearly pivot too, right? Which like it's a good level, new asset though, you know, relatively new asset. Um, and I would put like a ton of stock into that, I guess, but it is there, and this is going to meet it at some point. It seems like, barring like a really big move up, which could happen too. Um, And I would say though, like the one nice thing is that there's like a pretty good series of higher lows, right? There's like pretty good series of that happening. Although, you know, that gave you a really nice move to your high, then it's kind of like melted down completely. But like overall, you know, which again is like where are the most significant lows on the chart still? I would argue they're here, which is why I would love to see this kind of setup. Like that would be a really good reason to watch that. So I don't know what this other one is. Oh, AI. Okay.
This is a very famous AI token.
Wow. Yeah. It's like way more history. Huh. Not that helpful.
These are two of my biggest holdings at the moment.
All right. So, um, It really annoys me when I can't like get the exact high that I want. There we go. So right now, what, 50%? Yeah, 50, you get 50% retrace. High, low, move up to the 50. This chart looks much better than the last one. Got nice structure off of your low. You want to see why I like SFPs? This is why. And like nice, kind of have like a descending wedge, which is bullish, right? You're a pattern trader. It's like bullish. Kind of wedgy. Could be. Oh, I mean, it kind of looks like a descending triangle, which isn't bearish or which isn't bullish. But you have like a descending pattern, breaks out to the upside. This is clearly gonna do pretty damn good things when you see a reaction like this. But the low of this is the low, right? So you made your high, came all the way back down, ran the low of the breakout. So you have your range before your breakout, came down, took that low. If you go to this chart, have the range or the breakout, come back down, take the low. Potentially exciting times. This is why I like that. Same thing, similar thing.
Crazy, yeah.
Right? Range, breakout, pull back, run the low of your range, moon, 5x. Watch this level. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. But the thing about this, okay, so gave you that trade, nice move. Like this is a really nice reaction, right? This is really nice. But the thing that's nice about this is it has really good structure. Low, high, right, which took this out. Arguably you're having good structure here before this nuke though. Into your SFP, but since then, low, high, higher low, higher high. So really nice market structure. Kind of like see like if there's level that maybe give it a bit of support. This one's pretty good. This one's probably not going to be that. Well, it was good here. Let's see. Low, high. Get this damn thing to go. Be a little bit deeper. Low, high, low, high. Pretty nice confluence here. If it does go that deep, and you would be yeah. So I mean, it's like what I'm looking at is for these points to see how deep were these retracements. Okay. And I do think that this is not a bad one. You have the golden pocket of this current leg up, which is down here, anchored VWAP from your low. Decent confluence here. You did go below it, then broke back above, reclaim, made a new high. So in terms of pullbacks, these are like really big though. And you don't really break structure until you're below 18. That's not very helpful. But yeah, overall, like this is much better chart than the last one for sure. And I don't know if you get that deep of a retracement. Kind of looks a bit, I mean, it does look pretty weak here to be fair. Almost your 382. It does look kind of weak here.
It's also the range high of the long consolidation.
I would say, um, just curious.
I feel like I'm at the doctor and the doctor is examining.
Yeah. Interesting. So you like see the anchored VWAP from the very beginning, really good support, right? You see like start to build this, comes into support, support, big move, comes back in, support, big move, lost it, then it starts to chop around through it. But overall, this is still pretty good. This is still pretty decent. Like, pretty well respected overall. There's a few areas where it's kind of not, but like that's still a pretty good level. Which is they're both, you take like your VWAP from the very beginning. It was like incredible support. The entire I mean most of the first half of the chart, I would say. But they're both kind of around this level ish. But yeah, I would say in terms of like relevance now, I don't know if it's that relevant. I mean, it's still being decently, it's not clear cut as this, right? So like if you were trading this early on, like, like on this ride up and we would be doing something similar, like this is clear. Like this is kind of like, I guess like to translate this back to this chart, you have a clear anchored VWAP from the high. No matter what happens down here, like you see how price is really far away from this. If we come back up into this, you bet your ass I'm going to be looking for that anchored VWAP, like as a take profit, wherever this is. Like this starts to start flattening out. It doesn't matter. Like when we come up to that, judging by how good it's been, even though it hasn't been, it's nowhere near that at this moment, like I would be definitely watching that one. Then we could play the same game here, see anything relevant. See, like very relevant. Actually, very relevant. Interesting. We good on this? I would say that like I think what's seems to be like if I had to take a guess, we're gonna come in a bit lower here. This doesn't look the best. This looks like it wants to pull back a bit more, let's just say. But I think judging by the structure of this chart, another higher low, then it's keep the structure going would look really good. I think coming into the golden pocket, I would be very careful. I would be really careful about this, just because like I love when you have an all-time high pull down to like a major significant low, which this is like the SFP low. These just tend to they tend to be really really good regions to watch. And even if you're like super bullish on it, right, it doesn't mean that like you can't trade it and then maybe it comes back and you get a nice pullback after that, something like that. I think that's pretty likely. It's pretty likely. Curious like what this level is, probably a bit higher up. Okay, yeah. So you look at there's a lot of volume here, like a lot of like it actually held this region pretty good. This is another reason why I wouldn't necessarily just expect this thing to moon right through it, right? Even if you come up into this region, you look at where the point of control is, it's literally sitting here, just under the 6.6. I think a wick up somewhere into this region just makes a lot of sense. And like I don't think it's like I don't think you necessarily like get through this on the first try. You have really good confluence for that, like for you to actually get, you know, get a bit of a projection off of that. So for me, seems like a bit more downside. Try to find its footing. You know, bullish scenarios like it's just another higher low, which this structure looks really good. For me, this is the bigger level. You get above this region, you get above like 61 cents, and very like wow, it'd be really really good. But yeah, I'd be really careful around here. All right. Went over ETH, XRP. Oh geez, you know I'm actually kind of curious about XRP. Holy crap! This is not what I expected to see at all. This is not what I expected. Um, is this live? Am I seeing things? Holy shit, it's green. Along with Fartcoin, by the way, which is over 1 billion. Crazy. That's like anyway. This is not what I expected to see. I mean, this is